What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the College Football Show. Might be the final College Football Show episode of the year. We are two of your three college football reporters here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm Noah Hiles. He is Andrew Destin. Andrew, bowl season has arrived. You gotta love bowl season.
Oh, nothing better than it. I remember as a little kid, I used to always plop myself on the couch. I knew once winter break had come around, it was time to watch the Gasparilla Bowl. It was time to watch the famous Idaho Potato Bowl.
Yes.
And work your way up from there. And it was 3 glorious weeks of sitting on the couch. You can't beat it.
It really is. And, I know we're not maybe appealing to everyone when we say this, but, as people who normally work later in the night, there's something special about waking up at around 9 and knowing I got 3 hours of my day to occupy until sports are on. And, I don't really care if it's, Western Kentucky against Middle Tennessee State in some bowl I've never heard of sponsored by some insurance company, but I'm going to watch it, or at least have it on in background noise, just in the background of whatever I'm doing. I'm going to have a ball on the screen and it's going to be moving back and forth. And it's just the best. This to me, you want to talk about holiday season, this gets me in the holiday season. It has nothing to do with Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or whatever you celebrate. But this to me, it's I got the tree set up. I'm watching 2 7-5 teams compete for a bowl that's named after some sort of snack or condiment. And it's just a great time to be alive.
Oh, man. No, you couldn't have said it any better there. I mean, and hey, for me, I grew up on the West Coast. I didn't even have to fill those 3 hours.
That's right.
We're right into it. Fresno State against University of Louisiana Lafayette, man. I mean,
my goodness.
That's what you live for right there. Couldn't
really
be a better
do.
time of the year. Yeah.
You really do. And now that you live in a state where you can gamble, I mean, it makes it even more fun, which we'll get into. So before we get into the entire bowl slate and just college football in general, Andrew, both of our teams are playing in, summer theme bowls, you could say. Just West Coast bowls. Pitt playing in the Sun Bowl against UCLA, both taking on Pac-12 teams. Penn State taking on Pac-12 champion Utah in the Rose Bowl. We're just going to go through these matchups real quick, an advantage, a disadvantage, and a score prediction. Andrew, I'll let you start with the Rose Bowl.
First one for me is special teams. That's my advantage. You look at this Utah side, punting the football has been difficult for them. They've alternated with 2 different punters. Field goal kicking, they've used 2 different guys, and in the return game, they haven't been particularly explosive. Got a lot of respect for Kyle Whittingham as a coach, but on the special teams side, that's been something that has plagued Utah. Meanwhile, for Penn State, aside from that last game when Jake Pinniger missed a pair of field goals, punting, kick returns, kicking itself, they've been excellent in that regard. So I'll point to that as an advantage for Penn State. A disadvantage for the Nittany Lions, though, is they have to stop a really good tight end in Dalton Kincaid. And I know that people are talking about how good Abdul Carter has been this year at linebacker, but when you look at the pass game for Utah, and specifically over the middle, how do they stop a tight end like that? They haven't faced anybody quite to that caliber. He's the Utes' leading receiver, so slowing him down, having that tight end on their side of the football versus Penn State's, that's certainly a disadvantage for the Nittany Lions. And, I think the theme that always seems to play out here, Noah, and we've talked about this before, is that the Rose Bowl kind of morphs into a little bit of a shootout. And, that was the case last year. It seems like it's always really the case, even if it's a playoff game or if it's just Pac-12 versus Big Ten. I kind of see a higher scoring game here, and sticking with the theme that Pac-12 schools always seem to perform better in the Rose Bowl than expected. I'm going to give the Utes a win here. They were there last year and came up just short against Ohio State. I got them beating Penn State 38-31.
Okay. That'll be a fun game. I mean, how do you not look for it? Have you covered a Rose Bowl?
I never have. I've been to 2 Rose Bowls, but I've never covered one. This is a first for me.
That's got to be a cool experience for you, especially your last assignment covering Penn State. I mean, you can't really ask for anything better.
Yeah, it's a swan song and a half. Couldn't be more grateful for that, that's for sure.
That's awesome. So we'll get to the Sun Bowl now. Pitt taking on number 18 UCLA. My advantage for Pitt, kind of similar to what you have. I'm just going to key in on one element of special teams, though. It's in the punt return game. UCLA is 12th in the Pac-12, which I believe is dead last when it comes to punt coverage. And Pitt has MJ Devonshire, the return man. He already took one to the house this year. I believe he's top 5 in the country in return yards. He was second team all ACC as a return specialist. So I think that, with no starting quarterback, Pitt's going to need some things to break their way, and I think special teams might be the way to do that. A big punt return from Devonshire, even if it's not a touchdown, just setting Pitt up with shorter fields throughout the entire game, or just one good return and then UCLA punting away and giving Pitt a shorter field might play an advantage for them. A disadvantage, we hinted at it. I don't want to talk about it anymore because we've written and talked about it all week. Keaton Slove is not with the Pitt football program anymore. He intends to transfer. He will not play in the Sun Bowl. I don't know how bad that actually hurts them, honestly. I mean, he wasn't anything amazing this year for Pitt, as I've said all year. I do think Nick Patty is probably a little bit beneath, Slovis as far as skill and ability, but I do think he knows. I think the team gets an extra pep in its step with Nick Patty. This is a team that really, really appreciates their guy who's been there for a long time. Through all the ups and downs, he supported Pickett as a backup. He stepped in and got his chance in the Peach Bowl last year, only to get hurt after scoring a touchdown on the first drive of the game. And so now this is kind of his second chance. And with another quarterback coming in, he wants to, avoid losing that starting job all over again to another transfer. But they're at a disadvantage because they don't have their starting quarterback. And more importantly, they don't have their best player on defense either, the ACC Player of the Year, Kalijah Cansey, who also won't play in this one due to injury, not opting out or anything, as Pat Narduzzi made very clear in our Sun Bowl press conference. But, Pitt's playing this game without its starting quarterback and its best player on defense, which is not great. Less than ideal for Panther fans. My score prediction, I do think this one will be close. I think that Pitt, they're going up against one of the best rushing attacks in the country, against a really good quarterback. They've seen better, but he's very talented. I really like UCLA as a football team altogether. I think they had a really strong season. I think UCLA wins 27-20. I think Pitt's able to keep it close, but in the end, I think UCLA is just a better team, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. So, Andrew, we'll move on now to the bowl slate. You look through, and there's always some interesting matchups, some fun storylines. So just looking everything over, I want each of us to go through and give our favorite bet of the bowl slate, our luck of the remainder of the college football year, and our favorite bowl matchup. And I'll make a caveat here. You cannot pick a college football playoff matchup or either of the games we'll be covering. So that limits you to all but 4 games. So what do you got for me?
So for me, the favorite bet and lock for me, I got to go with the Washington Huskies. They are getting +6 points, +6 against Texas. This is a Texas team that all year long we've heard about how good Texas is, that they're back. It's a recurring theme. I know. In reality, Texas did have a better year, but they seem to keep getting a benefit of the doubt just because they are Texas. And giving the Huskies credit is something that nobody really wants to do, despite Michael Penix Jr. probably deserving of being in New York City for the Heisman Trophy voting. Just my personal opinion there. He's had a phenomenal year transferring over from Indiana. They're a 6-point underdog. I know that game's in Texas, but this Huskies team is legit. DeBoer's got a heck of a team there in his first year coaching those guys. Talk about a turnaround. Washington the last couple of years, not that good. I'm giving them to win that one outright, but at the very least cover that 6-point spread. And then the game that I'm certainly looking forward to is Tulane against USC. That's another one where I really like the green wave in that one in terms of covering that spread. I think this USC team is bound to have a little bit of a deflation. I don't know if they lose that one outright, but this is a good Tulane team. They've shown people this year that they can compete, doing what they were able to do in the AAC. And USC, they are very vulnerable on the defensive side of the football. So I'm expecting that one to be a shootout. Maybe the Trojans come out on top, but really like the Tulane green wave in that one, and really just excited to watch that game too.
All right, my favorite pick is Louisville -1.5 in the Fenway Bowl, which should be just renamed the Scott Satterfield Bowl. Anytime a team plays after its coach leaves, I like to bet on that team, especially when the team that the coach left for is the opponent. Cincinnati is just going into this game with what motivation? Their coach just left them. They're playing in the Fenway Bowl in the first couple, I think it's like the third game that's going to be played, December 17th, 11 a.m. kickoff. What do they care? Louisville has all the motivation in the world here. They want to send a message to their ex-head coach who left them for their upcoming opponent in a smaller conference. He left the ACC for the AAC. Just tons of motivation there. I love the Cardinals, who I also think are a very talented team. They were in the top 5 in the country in sacks. I like Malik Cunningham as a quarterback. They have a couple talented receivers. I just think they're a decent football team. So yeah, I'm going to take Louisville there, -1.5. As far as bowl matchups, I have 2 I really want to look at. My favorite one's the Orange Bowl, just because it's 2 orange teams playing in the Orange Bowl. You got to love that. And I think that we're going to get a better look at Clemson's new quarterback. His name, is it Allen? Is that his last name?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. He looked really good in the ACC championship. I think he's going to be their next really good quarterback in that string that they've had from Watson all the way to now. And I'm excited to see him play against a Tennessee defense that doesn't do well against quarterbacks. But I also think Tennessee can move the football well with its great stable of wide receivers. And while they don't have Hendon Hooker, I think Joe Milton's a really good player who I think next year could be one of the top quarterbacks in the country. He's got a great throwing arm. And I don't know. I just love what this matchup brings. I hope they both wear their home orange uniforms and we're just super confused all day. That's what I'm looking for in the Orange Bowl. Another matchup real quick that I'm really excited for, South Carolina and Notre Dame. 2 of the silently really good teams in the second half of the year. No one was ever paying attention to South Carolina really until they had 2 huge upset wins in their final 2 games of the season. Spencer Rattler actually looking like the player that many thought he would be and hadn't been for the last 2-3 years. And then, Notre Dame, everyone gave up on them after they started 0-2, but they ended up having a really good year under Marcus Freeman. And while they didn't get the job done against USC in their regular season finale, I think a Gator Bowl win in his first year as a head coach would be a nice step forward considering all the chaos that ensued after Brian Kelly left. So that'll be a second good game that I'm looking forward to watching. Andrew, we'll wrap up the show now. Big predictions. I got to ask, is it just going to be chalk? Is it just going to be chalk? Is it that simple that we already know the national champion and the Heisman Trophy winner, like, just now?
It feels like it. And this is one of those years where it's like, why does the playoff exist? And it's good. I like the playoff. I like expansion, giving more teams opportunities. But it feels like this is one of those years where there's 2 actually really great elite teams, and one of them plays that style of football a lot better than the other, and that's Georgia and Michigan. I feel like Georgia has this thing on lock. The only way they can lose this is if Ohio State, CJ Stroud throws for 500 yards and has this all-time offensive performance. That's how it happens. But if everything holds chalk, you have Georgia win against Ohio State, Michigan beats TCU, and Georgia just does what Michigan does better. And then you go to the Heisman Trophy, and you and I talked about this. Heisman, it should have been Hendon Hooker if he had stayed healthy. But in reality, it's going to be Caleb Williams. I would have loved to say it should be Max Duggan, but they lost a conference championship game to Kansas State. You can't give it to him.
And Max Duggan isn't the best quarterback in the country.
No.
That's why you also can't give it to him. Max
Probably
Duggan.
not even the best in the conference.
No.
There's better guys in the Big 12.
Right.
You can't.
Yeah. I get it. He cried. And, it was emotional. And, he provided a gritty effort. But, Hendon Hooker is a better player than Max Duggan, than Stetson Bennett. I'll give Stroud. Stroud is a better college quarterback. I don't really invest too much into the Stroud stock at the next level. But, Hendon Hooker was the best player in the country this year. He deserved a New York invite. And if he just didn't break his leg, even if they lost to South Carolina, if he just plays that final week against Vanderbilt, does his normal 4 touchdowns, 275 yards, whatever, he's your Heisman. He is your Heisman Trophy winner. Because Caleb Williams laid an egg against Utah. Drake May disappeared. And, the Michigan kid did nothing and his team still dominated. No one wants to win this award. Caleb's going to get it simply because he had one cool run against Notre Dame and he had the least of the falling out compared to everyone else. But this is a very lame Heisman Trophy thing. And like you said, Andrew, I was watching the U Part 2 30 for 30 on my flight down here to Nashville. And it talked about how in 2000, they kind of got screwed out of the BCS championship despite, beating Florida State or whatever. And I just was like looking at that. I'm like, yeah, the BCS would be perfect this year because there are just two teams that are so clear cut above everyone else. And sure, Ohio State, I think, has the better. I agree with you, too, that Ohio State has the better chance to beat Georgia simply based upon how their roster is constructed and how they play the game. But I don't think they have a chance. I think they're going to get all over Stroud, and I think Georgia's going to win both their playoff games by double scores. So hopefully we're wrong. Hopefully it is entertaining. The game always does find a way to entertain one way or another. Andrew, any final thoughts here on what will likely be our final college football show?
Yeah, but I mean, you piqued me there with Caleb Williams throwing up the Heisman pose against USC. I guess a question for the audience would be, when's the last time a player threw up the pose, lost the next game, and then still won the Heisman? I feel like he has to be the first to do that because that's a heck of a combination right there. But so goes college football. Yeah.
Right. Maybe he'll write, Heisman on his fingernails or something. Instead, oh god,
Pac-12 runner-up. Yeah.
Well, buddy, it was fun hosting this show with you. To everyone who viewed throughout this fall, we appreciate it. This is something we both enjoy doing. We hope you enjoyed our analysis as well. And if you hate watched, I mean, we'll still take it. Still helps our numbers. If you haven't subscribed already, be sure to do so. Follow us on our social media platforms and stay tuned. I'm sure you'll be seeing me and Andrew on this channel some way, somehow, moving forward. As always, thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you liked the video, please like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you enjoyed it on Apple Podcasts, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. For 6 months of digital access to post-gazette.com for just $6, click the link down in the description.